Ladies and gentlemen, can I call you to attention, please? Howard Bernstein, for those of you who don't know me, this is our second stand presentation. And really what I think this gives us an opportunity to do is really two things. One, I think it brings into very sharp focus the work that we have been doing right across Greater Manchester. People often talk about the real sense of cohesion that characterises the activities and the prioritisation processes for all the 10 local authorities in Greater Manchester. And one of the single most important manifestations of that has been the emergence of the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. I know that can be extremely bureaucratic, but fundamentally it's a single institutional framework which is designed to coordinate planning, housing, transport and economic development strategies. And I think that is a model that will become increasingly important in the UK and indeed elsewhere in the future. The second manifestation, which is why I'm particularly pleased to welcome Eamonn Boylan here to give you the presentation, is that for those of you who were here last year or perhaps even the year before, I think we often talked about some of the challenges facing cities, not just in the UK, but throughout Europe. Bruce Katz this morning talked about the metropolitan revolution, the need for individual cities and their regions to actually create for themselves a toolkit of interventions, including investment capability as well. Investment capability because central government resources are becoming increasingly constrained, whatever you think, at the pace at which fiscal austerity is taking place, and also because it gives us a sharper capacity to make the connections between our economic ambitions, our sites, and how we actually secure occupation of those sites, and indeed levels of investment and job creation. Eamonn Boylan is not just Chief Executive of Stockport Council and a long-term colleague. Eamonn has been leading for Greater Manchester the whole investment strategy, and I think we've now reached an appropriate point in its development where we're in a position to share it with you. So, Eamonn Boylan, thank you.
Thank you, Howard. It's a delight for me to be here representing both Stockport as part of the Greater Manchester City Region adventure, but also to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in terms of the investment strategy, why we have one, what it's for, what it's seeking to do, what our priorities are. Just to give you a bit of context, and some of you may have seen this before, this appalling piece of acne on the left is actually just a figurative illustration of where the two fundamental growth nodes in the UK economy are. One is London, which, as you can see, is far and away the largest, but the other is Manchester. We have 4% of the national economy. There is an enormous opportunity for us to achieve sustainable economic growth. But the challenge is on the left. Just to make it clear, again, some of you may have heard this before from Howard, we are, as we stand, a net importer of public money. Our tax generation is far exceeded by our tax take, and that is because of the levels of deprivation and underactivity that still characterise the Greater Manchester economy. And this is a simple financial indicator of our ambition. And our ambition is to move from the left to the right so that we are a net exporter of income into the UK economy. And that's not just a grandiose vision thought up by politicians or chief executives. It's because if we are to achieve that, we have to tackle those fundamental challenges of worklessness, poor health, low skills that are afflicting so many of our people, where, if you count it crudely, over 1.5 of the 10 boroughs of Manchester is economically disconnected, if you think about it just in sheer volume of numbers of people. So we believe that our investment strategy needs to be fundamentally focused around places in order to make certain that we're bringing together our investment in people, our investment in skills, our investment in business, our investment in growth, in order to make certain that we are delivering the sustainable locations that can support growth in the long term. And a fundamental part of that is about our investment in people, providing the skills needed by a modern economy. And one of the big asks in the Greater Manchester City deal of government is to create the conditions where we can genuinely say that the employers in Manchester can determine the skills agenda for the public sector. We're not there yet, but that's a clear objective for us moving forward. So we've achieved quite a lot. Some of it is already very familiar to you. We secured a city deal for Greater Manchester, which has seen the first steps in devolving powers to GM. It is only the first steps. We are embarked on a journey with government. I think it's fair to say that the current government has gone further than anyone previously in starting to have a serious dialogue with cities, but we're still in the foothills of where we need to get to. You know about Airport City as a huge opportunity for us to exemplify our investment capability. We've developed an investment framework to fund major developments, and I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail in a moment. We've created an integrated business hub to help GM businesses flourish, and we're creating a united skills and employment hub to ensure that there is proper local ownership and the engagement of employers in driving ownership of the skills agenda. But we've also taken the lead, and I think it is fair to say that we are ahead of the curve here in articulating an investment strategy that is about growth, but is also about reform. And by reform, I mean the fundamental reshaping of the public service in order to make certain that we're reducing our investment on the consequences of failure and increasing our investment in supporting the independence of our people and our places. And that's quite an important shift for the entire public sector. And that's something that we need to drive with a spatial awareness to make certain that the public agencies in Manchester are joining together to deliver that outcome, because we won't deliver that fundamental shift. We won't enable our people to benefit from the growth that we will generate unless we do that. To say something about the investment framework. Now, I know that for the private sector, your heart sinks at the prospect of getting out of bed in the morning and coming to talk to the likes of me about how you access public money to support your growth. It's the thing that really gets your heart skipping, isn't it? So we've got a wonderful strategy. It's built around 3 core pillars: creating infrastructure, support for business, and low carbon, and we're utilising a whole raft of funds to try and support that. It's a recipe for confusion. So what we've done is try to simplify that by creating one door, one team, and one strategy. So that we're trying to say to the private sector, yes, there is public money there to support what you're trying to deliver. Let us demystify it. Let us uncomplicate it for you so that there's a single point of access. And by using that approach and focusing on clear sectoral priorities, we've managed to invest already over £100 million, utilising government funds available to us through RGF, ERDF, and other processes. And critically, that's going in largely, the vast majority of that money is going in as investment, not grant. Because one of the things that we believe very strongly is that a mature economy in a mature city like Greater Manchester should be capable of growing on the basis of investment, not to create a commercial return for the local authorities, but to enable us to reinvest that money to generate further growth moving forward. And to be honest, weaning business off grant is a fundamental prerequisite, we think, to that long-term sustainability. So the outputs that we're measuring are fundamentally focused around job creation, contribution to GVA. These are the measures that are here, but fundamentally this is about growing jobs and growing economic activity. We've also tried to seek within that to create an integrated support for business. So there is one point of entry through the Growth Hub to all of these areas of support for business. So it's not simply about capital for investment, it's also about helping you to sustain, support, grow your business, access support to training, access support to finance, and all of that being managed through a single point of entry. And through that Growth Hub, the targets that we've set for 2015 are ambitious, but we believe are eminently achievable. So over 4,000 businesses, over 9,000 jobs, 1,000 new startups, and over 200 million additional GVA is the target that we've set for the Growth Hub for 2015. I'm going to run through some examples of where investment has been made, just to give you some illustrations of what it is that we're trying to achieve. But in addition to this, I just want you to bear in mind that we're also investing in the creation of skills academies in textiles. We're also investing in support for advanced manufacturing, and we've invested in over 100 businesses through the Growth Fund so far. But just to give you some examples of projects that we've been bringing forward. We believe it's fundamentally important that we support the regeneration of the core of the city, And so a place-making agenda is really, really important to us. One of the biggest examples and earliest examples of investment through the fund is in Chapel Street in Salford. Many of you regard it as an outlandish piece of traffic calming, but fundamentally it's about rebuilding a part of the city that has been disconnected from the growth of the conurbation core for many, many years. So it's fundamentally important that we create the funds to invest in places, because to be honest, there isn't a government programme out there that does it anymore. So we need to do that. We've clearly recognised, and there's a very extensive piece of work going on at the moment to increase our understanding, the importance of logistics. And so we are investing in the creation of capacity for logistics as a growth sector for GM. This is Logistics North, otherwise known as Cutacre, where we're putting in £10 million of funds in order to unlock the infrastructure to enable private sector investment then to flow. We're also investing in our science base. And it's fundamentally important that we recognise the importance of science and advanced science to our economic growth in the future. There's the National Institute for Graphene being developed, but here at City Labs, the former Royal Eye Hospital, we're investing significant resources through both our Regional Growth Fund and Evergreen, which we brought together to create a single funding package to support this very, very important project, which when the guys at Bruntwood explained the complexity of the fit-out to me was really quite breathtaking. But apparently people are going to do some very, very, very clever things in this building. I won't even attempt to understand it. We're also wanting to create capacity for our creative businesses. And this is the Cotton Building, the latest example of investment at Spinningfield, specifically designed to cater for the needs of small and growing creative businesses. It's really, really important that we use our investment and our covenant to enable businesses to develop new models to meet emerging needs. And it's also very important that we invest in places and that we invest in growing our housing supply. And Partington was one of the first investment decisions that we made, not only to invest in creating new homes, but effectively in creating the infrastructure to support those new homes. Again, going back to the point I made earlier, that unless we create the capacity, there is very little option in the public purse these days to support coherent placemaking. So, in summary, we are investing in growth and we are investing in reform. We believe the two things are inextricably linked and interdependent. We are seeking to align public funds to make it as easy as possible for sensible human beings to access government financial structures, because the two things are not really designed to communicate with each other. It is about creating confidence in the future of the economy of Greater Manchester. It is fundamentally about how we can create the conditions for you in the private sector to do what you do best and drive growth. But it's based around local governance and local decision making. And that's been one of the most important things that we've developed over the last few years, creating our capacity across GM to have a shared evaluation, a shared appraisal, and a shared decision-making process. But are we going to stop here? Well, no, we're not. We've created a fund that is now starting to be recycled, and we will start to see receipts flowing back into that fund over the next 2 to 3 years. And we're determined that we will use that to leverage that fund, to gear that fund, in order to make certain that we can continue to invest and start to create the prospect for co-investment by the private sector alongside us. But fundamentally, we will use the public money that we have and we will sweat it harder than you've seen it sweated anywhere else in order to make this work. Thank you.